We are live. Welcome, Bob. We are live. Welcome to Live Forever Young Radio Live.
Hello, TikTok land, Live Forever Young Radio, people on YouTube and Facebook.
Yep, we're live on all three, my friends. It's Tuesday at 11 a.m. And every Tuesday and Thursday, me and Bob talk about some cool stuff that we find in the headlines, some new information, usually having to do with health, usually something that we can relate to, and hopefully you can too. So welcome. Again, this is Live Forever Young Radio Live. I'm Raleigh. That is Bob. Thanks for joining us. We have some pretty cool stuff today. One of the things I saw in the news headlines, I believe it was just today. I think it just came out this morning. Something about a new brain-based treatment for menopausal hot flashes has been approved by the FDA, right? So I have a little bit of information here for you guys, as I always like to start out with. So the story goes, U.S. regulators have approved a first-of-its-kind drug to treat hot flashes, a symptom that affects as many as 80% of people going through menopause. Now, this is different, though. Instead of using hormones, they target the neural pathways that give rise to the hot flashes. It's a different approach on this particular treatment. The approval of what's called fezolinetant, I was practicing that, and I almost had it right. Fezolinetant, or Vizoa, is what it's called, was announced on May 12th by the Food and Drug Administration, and it's a way to treat hot flashes without relying on hormonal therapy. So this actually is something that if they had to, they could use this on a man if they wanted to.
Yeah, because the pathway is very similar in a male's brain.
Mm-hmm.
If men had hot flashes, men do go through a form of menopause themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Usually hot flashes isn't one of the things. It's mostly women. But this new drug is going to be very effective for a good percentage of the women. I guess came from a Japanese drug maker.
Yeah,
and they've had research going on this for a long time, mostly in rats.
Yeah, I actually have the details here. So let's see here. In the 1990s, a neuropathologist named Naomi Rance at the University of Arizona in Tucson found a group of brain cells that were larger in the brains of postmenopausal women than in those of premenopausal women. Okay. She went on to find that these cells, called KNDY neurons, respond to a molecule called neurokinin B, and that blocking the receptor allows those neurons to perceive neurokinin B can block symptoms akin to hot flashes in rats, just like you said. Absolutely. Later clinical studies showed that a similar pathway was at work in women's brains. Fezolinetant, which is produced and works by blocking a protein called neurokinin 3 receptor, which mediates the heat dissipation responses to neurokinin B. So there you go. That's the technical aspects of it. So yeah, I guess started out here in the 90s trying to figure out the hot flash thing. Found this information in the brains of postmenopausal women and rats, I guess, is where they started. Moved to a clinical trial, and now you've got this new drug, technically brain-based treatment that is supposed to really reduce the symptoms. Now, what do the trials say? We went over this a little bit. I got the numbers here, but go ahead.
Yeah, just before we do that, with hot flashes, caused by menopause, it's not just an inconvenient thing. It's like, oh, I'm feeling hot and I'll fan my face and now I'm okay.
Right.
It's way worse than that, because hot flashes keep people awake at night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just hot flashes from menopause, but if your room is too hot and your temperature is going up and down in your room, and you wake up and you're really hot, it's hard to get back to sleep if you're hot and if your room is not cool. So the sleep scientists say always keep your room a couple degrees cooler at nighttime.
Yeah,
So
that's
you don't
true.
get woken up from the hot, because if you have trouble sleeping and you have bad hot flashes and you're not getting a good night's sleep, it accumulates and it leads to weight gain,
Mm-hmm.
and it leads to memory loss and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
poor production at work. And if a woman has hot flashes at night, she comes into work tired and anxious, and irritability is another part of menopause.
Absolutely.
Then it can affect their work, and especially if they have hot flashes at work. So this is a big deal because of that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing that I'm glad you kind of stopped there and kind of acknowledged the fact that this isn't just like, oh, I'm hot and okay, no. This is something that can be very disruptive. And like you said, specifically with a sleep cycle. And we talk about in a lot of our other podcasts some great tips on how to sleep. And you were talking about temperature of the room. And even it was funny because I think we were getting ready to do a show about it or something, and I was researching, and I found that, and I do this all the time. I found a study that said people that sleep in socks tend to sleep a little bit better. And I always wear socks when I go to sleep. And I don't know why, but I do. When I don't wear the socks, I tend to wake up more, actually. And I think it has something to either do with regulating body temperature or circulation, because if you have something on your foot, it could help with the circulation, especially something that far down the body and you're laying flat. It's hard to pump all the way down to that end.
As long as the socks aren't too tight.
No.
Yeah.
These are not like,
you want floppy socks.
Yeah, I do. I wear the ones that have the little soft pad or the rubber pads on the bottom. Yeah. They're made for sleeping. They're not real athletic socks. They're kind of just, they're nice. They make my feet feel nice, guys.
There you go.
Try it. If you don't wear socks and you sleep poorly, try putting on a pair of socks. Let's see what happens. It's my challenge to you. Anyway, so go ahead.
So then also we were saying that there's some stats from the study. So
the stats. I got the stats right here.
Yep.
So the clinical trials of fezolinetant showed that it can significantly reduce hot flushes frequency by about 60% in women experiencing moderate or severe hot flushes each week. Now, this is kind of something me and Bob stopped and looked at and said, this is compared to a 45% reduction in those who received a placebo, right? So we wanted to stop here and talk about that, right? So 60%, that's great, of course. People who got the treatment saw a reduction in about 60%. But people who didn't and who were just told that they were part of a study about hot flashes reduced by about it says here, 45% reduction in those who received a placebo.
Right.
So, Bob, mind, body. Yeah. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. So, a placebo is something that's given to someone, and they're told this is going to make you feel better.
Right.
Or even this, they're given something. They say you're part of a study, and we can't tell you if you got the real drug or we're not giving you the real drug. We're giving you a placebo. We can't tell you that.
Right.
And the person still has a beneficial effect, even though they're told you may or may not feel better.
This is a phenomenon, guys, right? This is crazy. Yeah. And so this kind of shows that this phenomenon of the placebo is actually kind of a real thing too. So we definitely wanted to address it.
Yeah. So, and in this case, the numbers are very close together. 60% of the people taking the actual drug had reduction in hot flashes, and 45% that participated in the study but never got the drug also had improvement.
That's crazy.
So
it's actually only 15% less when you do the numbers.
It's very close. So what does it tell us? The drug works, obviously. It's a statistically significant difference, 60 to 45. It's a lot. It's 3 standard deviations, so it's really a significant thing. But on the other hand, people given a placebo had almost as good of a response. So what this can say is possibly for some women, the fact that they're having hot flashes is actually a collective nocebo.
Yes.
So a nocebo is something that's happening to somebody that's negative, that there's no real particular reason for it other than it's being observed that other people are having this.
Right.
And so I'm too going to have it.
Yes.
So the classic one is about aging.
We talked about this.
When
This
a
is very
child
good.
is 5 or 6 years old, they begin to perceive impermanence, meaning I'm 5 years old, my brother's 10, my sister's 20, mom and dad are 50, grandma's 80, great grandma just died. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
It's a collective nocebo. So with hot flashes, you could hypothesize that a large percentage of women that are getting hot flashes are getting hot flashes because they think they're supposed to. I'm going through menopause. I have stopped my menstrual cycle. So this is the beginning of menopause. Hot flashes. Why? My mom had hot flashes. Grandma had hot flashes. My sister had hot flashes. All my friends had hot flashes. I guess I better have hot flashes.
Right.
It's unconscious observation of the group, of the whole, and your body mind opts in and says, okay, I'm going to do that too.
Right.
Now, these numbers of 45% responding to the placebo tell us that there's a very good possibility that women could mitigate hot flashes by opting out of the collective nocebo. So how would one do something like that?
That's the ticket, right?
So there's a technique for opting out of any type of nocebo, even the one that causes people to age.
Right.
Okay. And certainly for hot flashes, you could use the emotional freedom technique, also called tapping. Okay. So tapping is tapping on the tips of your fingers about 5 times on each fingertip on the side of your nail. Okay. And then 5 times on your karate chop point. Okay. And then just keep rotating. And for this particular nocebo, you would say something like this. Even though up until now, I thought, even subconsciously, that I had to participate in this nocebo of hot flashes, I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize I don't necessarily have to have hot flashes. It might just be my unconscious mind has caused it because I'm witnessing everybody else do it my age. And I've decided to opt out and feel at complete peace. Right? Cross your hands over your heart and breathe in. And create a peaceful posture, a peaceful mind. And there you go. That's how you opt out of a nocebo. Okay, you can do the same thing with aging. Even though up until now, I thought I had to participate in this collective nocebo of aging. Okay, and then on like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is one of the biggest things that came out of this study. 45% responding to the placebo.
I completely agree.
Let's do some tapping and see if it helps your hot flashes.
I think, like you said, this is kind of one of the coolest extra things we got out of this study here is kind of the idea that even without this, you could have a 45% of the people increase improvement. It's kind of impressive. Hey, everybody in TikTok, thank you, everybody who's joined us. Thank you guys on YouTube. Today we're talking about new FDA-approved brain-based treatment for menopause, hot flashes, brain health, and nootropics, right? So we just talked a little bit about the study that they...
And Raleigh, in this study, they also said that this pathway that the drug is interrupting because it's blocking the receptor, that it's actually only one of the known ways that your body and mind regulate heat.
Really?
Yeah. And so what they're saying is that there's other factors to be considered. And because it's only worked for 60% of the people, that they're now going to begin looking at the other pathways that regulate heat and possibly come up with a drug that will address all those pathways, probably one at a time.
Yes, and actually that was one of the next things I was just about to say. It says here, for most women, fezolinetant does not entirely eradicate the flushes because of the existence of these other pathways.
Yeah.
Is only one of the only one they know of, like you said.
Well, they know of the others, but they
3.
haven't developed drugs for the other pathways that also affect heat regulation.
There you go.
So when you test a drug, you test it for one thing against one thing.
You can't do all
and
3.
So now there's this and this also. So now they have to create a new drug that'll block a different receptor or enhance something. And as they go, there may end up being a combination of 2 or 3 drugs that could work way better than 60%. And now it's better than the placebo by a lot more. But you should also still do your tapping for that collective nocebo anyway.
Well, yeah, even if it doesn't entirely mitigate it, it could possibly reduce the incidence of hot flashes. And like we said, it's not just an annoyance. It can be really disruptive throughout the day for sleep, So try doing some tapping if you can't sleep because you have a hot flash. That could help. Another thing that they were looking at, and we kind of talked a little bit about it, but for years, the typical treatment for this was with hormones, right? And when you use hormone therapy for that, it can bring a bunch of symptoms, right? It can include fatigue, anxiety, headaches, more hot flashes. And so some people, when they experience the hot flushes and everything, and they can't rely on a hormone-based therapy for whatever reason. Some people can't take hormone-based therapies because of cancers that they've had, different medical issues that they have, strokes and things like that. So this is another avenue that can help people that have this occurrence. And when we were talking about that, we were thinking, well, one of the things that we know of that we actually have is our lignans product here. Our lignans product in here contains naturally occurring phytoestrogens, right? Yep. And that it can help depending on what your issues are, But yeah, what lignans actually are, those are the outsides of flax seeds. So everybody knows what flax seeds are, right?
Yeah.
We know what flax seeds are. But the most nutrients and the lignans themselves, all 27 that they know of, are on the outside of the seed. Right.
There's a wax coating the seed, and it's in that wax called the hull.
Right, and how do they get it off of there?
Well, they have our producers of this have a tumbler, mechanical tumbler, where they put the seeds in and they tumble them, and it knocks the wax off. And you don't want to have to take the whole flaxseed or flaxseed oil to try to get your lignans, because you'd have to take way too much of it. You wouldn't be able to eat that much flaxseed. Yeah. So you want the concentrate, which is in that hull. And so they knock it off, and then they grind it up and nutrient stabilize it, because the lignans don't last forever. There's a half-life.
No.
But there is numerous different lignans in there. So there's 27 different lignans in the hull of the flaxseed, and they all do something a little bit different. But what we do know is that they'll bind to estrogen receptors, particularly in the fatty tissue of the breast. And this is why they use lignans in relation to breast cancer. And you can use it even not in relation to cancer, because you have other phytoestrogens, which are estrogen lookalikes, that will bind to the receptors in the cells in the breast. And it could be things like plastics. So plastics mimic estrogens, right? And the plastics are toxic and can cause cancer. But if you're taking lignans, which are very healthy for you, because in that flax hull there's other nutrients as well, including antioxidants. So it's going to reduce your inflammation, which reduces your chance of getting cancer, and it will bind to the receptors. And so now the plastics can't bind to those receptors. So
about the receptors, what's important to know about these things is it's kind of like musical chairs. There's only so many receptors that the estrogen can bind to. And so when either a strong estrogen binds to this receptor, it actually creates more of that type of estrogen, right?
Yeah.
And so if a plastic lookalike binds to this, it might create more of that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is by taking lignans, you get a healthy form, and in a lot of cases, a weaker form of estrogen that can make things like hot flashes and menopausal symptoms not as bad for women. And it actually helps men too with mood. And I know it helps with prostate health. I got a lot of people who call and say, I had to get up 500 times to go to the bathroom, and now I took these once, maybe not at all. It's so it's really good for the sexual health.
And lots of women have used this for hot flashes, and it helps tremendously with hot flashes.
You read my mind. I was gonna say, in addition, it's a great thing that we've had a lot of women call back and say, hey, my hot flashes are severely less after using lignans. And so are, I've actually had a couple people that I know say their bloating and cramping is a lot better when they use that. And actually the heirloom barley. I've had a couple women say that when they've added that and the lignans together, the heirloom barley that we have in the lignans, it really helps to reduce the bloating and the severity of those type of symptoms. So it's pretty cool.
All of these actions that we're referring to are stimulated and facilitated with enzymes.
Correct.
And as you age, you make less of certain enzymes. And the barley, the heirloom barley, has about 4,000 different metabolic enzymes in that powder.
Right.
And so it can restore a more natural balance of enzymes.
Yeah. And if you guys want to know a little bit more about the products or a little bit more information on how those things work, you can go to boomerboost.com and you can look for our Live Forever Young Radio, or at the top it says LFYR podcasts and blogs. And you can actually click on there, and we have a bunch of different blogs. We actually have recipes, where you can include, we actually cook with lignans, and we cook with some of our probiotics and with our barley. So you can check that out. That's at boomerboost.com. You can click on the screen, or you can go there. And if you want to check out our other videos, our YouTube that we're on now, our TikTok, and our Facebook have the replays of our most recent live shows. And then our original 80 shows that we didn't do live, you can go find anywhere live streaming on iHeart Radio, Spotify, Apple iTunes, all the major platforms. So
and YouTube as well.
And YouTube again as well. And that's right. Always, definitely. But yes, so definitely check that out, because when you talk about brain health, which is kind of the basis of the show today, because the first study was about a brain-based treatment for menopause, and then we go on and talk about brain health, because if you don't have good brain health, this is something that might not help you, right? You might not have a hope for this. So you want to be in good brain, your brain to be in good shape, so that way if something comes along that can help you, that relies on a neuronal pathway like this does, to be in good shape, it'll perform, right?
Yeah.
So how do you take better care of your brain?
Yeah, and also, Raleigh, menopause causes anxiety.
Yes, it does.
So the anxiety is over numerous things. Hot flashes. Now I can't sleep. Now I'm anxious. I'm not going to be able to perform well at work, right? But in addition to that, my hormones are changing. Now am I going to get breast cancer, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so this can cause anxiety. And anxiety, we know, is the biggest enemy of a good memory. So when people are anxious, now they can't remember things as well. And people are like, what's going on with you? Are you getting Alzheimer's disease? And in fact, they're anxious because of menopause. And so it's very important to be able to address anxiety, even if you have menopause. So when you're going through symptoms of menopause, things are not okay.
Right. And we talk about in a couple other shows, most people are of the mindset that things aren't okay like 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And then if you're in that mindset and you're in something, then you're dealing with something like a health condition like menopause or something else, that's probably going to be worse.
Yeah. And so people have to be able to have techniques to soothe their anxiety, because the anxiety is going to lead to other things, including memory loss, but also tends to make people depressed because it takes up so much energy when you're anxious. Now you kind of crash, and now you're feeling depressed, and depression and menopause tend to go together. And so does anxiety and menopause, and of course, weight gain. So now all of a sudden you're a woman, you're 50 years old, Are you going through menopause? You got all these issues with sleep. Now you start to gain weight, and now you have more anxiety. Oh my God, I'm gaining weight. Okay. And so being able to handle that anxiety so that it doesn't lead to more and more things is very critical. So we can use the same techniques on the emotional freedom technique.
That's a good one. Tapping.
Anxiety, tapping.
Another one, we had a podcast with one of the amazing persons that we've had on our show, Hillary Russo. She's a havening practitioner, and havenings, it kind of incorporates a lot of the aspects of tapping, but
instead of rubbing your hands together, rubbing your arms, and repeating similar phrases.
Yep,
that's and there are people that get certified in havening.
Absolutely,
to be certified havening practitioners, but people can contact Hillary Russo.
Yes,
they can go to her website,
hillaryrusso.com.
Yep,
and you can actually sign up with her, and she'll give you a free havening session.
Yeah, she'll give you a free 15-minute session over the phone.
Very cool.
She's up in the Northeast, holds seminars from time to time up there. You go to her website and make contact with her if you need help with this type of thing.
Absolutely.
Another thing is, well, we know that with menopause and other brain issues related to it is the need for specific nutrients in addition to lignans. Now the lignans, they're formalized, controlled studies regarding lignans that show how it helps with your estrogen and shows a relationship to the prevention of breast cancer. Right? There's very good studies.
Yes,
on
we've read quite a few of them, and if you haven't, check it out. There's actually a lot of reference material in the description of the lignans that has a lot of the links to those things if you need to look for them.
And also, if you look at guides for nutrition related to menopause, vitamin D3 is a really big one.
Yes, it is.
And we know that most people are low in vitamin D3. Their number is 20 or below. There's billions of people around the world low in vitamin D3.
Yes.
And that's going to exacerbate your menopause symptoms if you're low. So you want to get your level checked, go to your doctor, and when you go for your blood work, make sure they check your D3, and you want to keep it at around 70.
Yeah, a lot of the times this is important. They used to check your D3 all the time, but in recent years, I don't know, I'm getting old, but years ago, I guess 10 years ago or so, more than that, they stopped doing that as on your panel. So you kind of have to ask for it, and it's actually a 25 OHD is what it's called.
Yeah.
And so that's the actual name, and that's overall good marker for your health. I don't know. Again, I don't know why you wouldn't want to know that number, but you would definitely need to know it if you want to make sure your D levels are where it's supposed to be, which is very important for genetic expression, immune health, bone health, energy.
Yeah.
I could go on.
Well, energy is another big aspect of menopause.
It zaps it for sure.
Really takes your energy, especially if you're not sleeping well. All right. And so in regard to energy, the D3 is first thing, but you also want to check your iron because people can very easily get high in iron or low in iron.
Right.
And most of the time now, when you go for your blood work at your doctor, they don't check your iron at all, even if you tell them you're low in energy. So you have to ask for it. You want your iron checked. And if it's low, obviously, you're going to need to increase it either from your diet or pills. And
if you're too high in it, though.
Yeah. And if you're low, you also want to take it with vitamin C, which helps with the uptake of iron.
Okay.
But if you're too high in iron, you're also going to have low energy, because the iron is going to interact with hydrogen peroxide, which is a byproduct of your energy cycle, your Krebs cycle.
Okay.
And it creates what's called ROS, reactive oxygen species, which damages the lining of your mitochondria, the wall of the mitochondria, where all the action is happening to create your energy. And so being high in iron is really bad for you. in some cases worse than being low in iron. And so know your iron number, and you don't want it to be towards the top of the range, right? So there's different types of iron tests. You want to know the range, and you want to be towards the middle of the range. If it starts to creep up above the middle of the range, you probably do well to donate blood from time to time, so you lower your iron level.
Now, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off about the vitamin C. So the vitamin D, take it with the C. Is what you were saying.
Well, yeah. Well, that's it. If you're low in iron, you'll need extra vitamin C.
Okay.
If you're high in iron, you won't need extra vitamin
My bad. So take the iron with the vitamin C.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And take it with the D too, because most people are low in D. So if you go to the doctor and you're low in iron and you're low in vitamin D, you want to take vitamin D, vitamin C, and some iron pills. Get your iron up, or change your diet where there's more iron in your diet of the food you're eating. So those are really important things for people going through menopause, because it's hard enough to have everything in balance, and then you're going through menopause, and if you're already low in D and you're low in iron, now it's going to be twice as bad.
Exacerbates it.
Yeah.
So the vitamin D too, I mean, we were talking about it, brain health, very crucial for brain health. Right. That's the one thing I didn't mention, and that's what the show's about. So I wanted to bring that back up.
Yeah.
Vitamin D for brain health is hugely important. Omega-3s, great for brain health, right? Because of the fatty acids, the good ones, though. This is the good fats, right? Everybody stay away from fats. Well, there's good and bad fats. We've all heard that before. What does that really mean, Bob?
Yeah. Well, first off, your brain is 60% fat.
There you go.
And it's the good fats.
That's why they call me a fathead.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. So good and bad fats, it's kind of like, it's not so much that they're good and bad, it's like the ratio. So
there you go.
There's use for different types of fats, except for trans fats, which you don't want. But you want to have the fats you take in, you want to be mostly omega-3 and a small amount of omega-6. Most people have 5 times as much omega-6 as they do omega-3, and it really needs to be reversed.
Okay. So it's not that it's good and bad. It's called ratios.
Yeah, the omega-6, when you start to get too much of it, it creates inflammation.
Okay.
Right. And so the 369 is a very simple thing. Fatty acids are made from carbon and hydrogen, and it's 3 carbons and then hydrogen. 3 carbons, hydrogen. Omega-6, 6 carbons, hydrogen. Right?
And then the bonds are 9 and 0.
And the bonds that hold them together are very important. Also, some bonds are very easily broken, which is good. So now you can utilize the fatty acids, right? And but if a fatty acid is a trans fat, meaning the bond is trans instead of cis, then it's very hard to break and becomes very inflammatory. So
Cheetos.
Good.
Cheetos have a lot of trans fat. Yeah. I love them.
Potato chips, all that. Yeah. Anyway. The other really important thing is probiotics.
Yes.
And particularly probiotics like ours that have been rendered primarily into metabolites.
Yeah. We were talking a lot on the show before, but for brain health specifically, metabolites are important in the gut, because we were talking, a lot of your neurotransmitters are actually created in the environment of the gut, right? And then they're transferred there, and become the transmission, if you will, of the signals of your brain.
Yeah.
And so if those things aren't created well, right? If they're created in an environment and they're not created well, and your gut's off balance, and that's where they're being created, you might have some memory problems. Right? A lot of the research, they actually approve fecal transplants.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now everybody knows what's a fecal transplant. Well, it sounds like what it is. It's a fecal transplant, but how it works, Bob, let's talk about how that works.
Well, generally they're done for people that have infections in their intestine, and in particularly their large intestine, although you do get small intestine bacterial overgrowths as well. But a fecal transplant is simply someone who is dying from an infection that they can't get rid of in their large intestine. And so they will give you an enema to vacate all of the feces in your large intestine. And then they will take a donor feces. They call them super poopers.
Nice.
And they have very good mix of bacteria, very diverse number of different bacteria.
Cool.
As many as 100 different kinds. And they will liquefy this with saline, and then they transfer it into the colon of this person who is sick, and they leave it there for a couple of hours, and they let it drain out, and now you have a new microbiome. So the microbiome of the donor clings to the walls of the intestine, changes the terrain, and infections like C. difficile cannot survive in that new terrain. And it's a way they cure people of this. They've been giving these types of transplants to disabled children that are born with spina bifida for quite a number of years. And what they accidentally discovered is that when they were treating people with C. diff that also had Parkinson's disease, when they treat them for their C. diff, a certain percentage of the time, people got cured of Parkinson's disease.
Wow.
And they began to realize that there was a microbiota aspect to Parkinson's disease.
Wow.
Not in every case. There's different reasons why people get Parkinson's disease, but in some cases, the fecal transplants were curing it.
It's amazing.
And so now the FDA has approved new types of treatment where you don't have to do this whole vacating and injection and that, but now in a pill form.
Really?
So you can take the pill, it goes in, survives the stomach acid, makes its way through your alimentary canal, and produces a new growth of good bacteria, some of which are scavengers of the bad bacteria, like C. diff.
Sure.
And they're finding that with this pill form of fecal microbiota transplantation, they can have a very similar effect.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Who would have ever thought?
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought?
And so that's all really important. The relationship of the bacteria in your gut to what's going on in your brain. It's very clearly understood. There's volumes of medical textbooks on it now that are 1,000 pages long. We
like to call it the gut-brain connection.
Yeah.
And we have a couple podcasts on it if you haven't seen it. So go check it out. It will go into some more information about that. And that's actually kind of where we were talking earlier about what's another thing that we always know can help. And a lot of things recently, in most recent years, you've seen the movie Limitless.
Yeah.
The guy that takes the pill and his brain can do anything. But that might not be exactly how it works. But there's a class of compounds and things that people can take supplement wise. It's called nootropics.
Yeah.
Right. And we've talked about nootropics a lot and how they can really help improve memory, focus, concentration, productivity, relief of brain fog, So these things, how do they work, my friend?
Well, there's a lot of different compounds that have a positive effect on the brain. Each one is a little bit different.
Right.
Our product called Clarity Factor has many different compounds in it that each one helps a little different way, and you can see it on our website, a description of how each one works.
Absolutely.
And then we have a second nootropic that is called Neurofuel. And Neurofuel looks like this. And this one has a very specific pathway, one specific pathway, which leads to others. So there's in this, there's 5 different compounds in here, and the 2 active ingredients that they found when you put them together have a very positive effect. One is from coleus, and the other is from artichoke. So artichoke extract and forskolin, which is derived from coleus, forskolli. Those 2 together have a positive effect on what's called C-AMP, C-AMP, which as it rises, it tends to float up the other neurotransmitters that are important, such as norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin, will rise together. And so this gives a more heightened sense of awareness and clarity, and memory improves. And there are 3 other ingredients in the neural fuel: phenylalanine, vitamin B6, and acetyl L-carnitine. They're combined together to counteract some of the side effects that can happen if you take too much forskolin and artichoke.
Okay.
So
it's set to regulate.
Yeah, it just balances the whole thing out. So the only side effect that I've ever noticed from taking it is if I take too much. So some people can only take 1, some people take 2. 2 is the recommended dose.
Right.
That's what I use. But I find that if I take 3, it's too much and I'll get jittery.
Really? Okay. So your C amp is too high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
right. Then you get amped up.
You get too amped up.
Yeah.
Pineapple. I was setting you up. There you go. So, so when you talk about nootropics, a lot of it works on the theory. At least our clarity factor. C amp is different, but our clarity factor, and a lot of the ways that nootropics work are by increasing oxygen and blood flow.
Yeah.
And nutrients to the brain. Right.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it can help improve performance as well. Some of the things that I've actually talked to people taking either one or the other. I talked to a lady on the phone all the time. I won't use her name, but she was about 76 at the time. This was about a year ago. I talked to her, and she had gotten her clarity factor free. She had ordered a dynamic combo. And we were doing a promotion where we put the clarity factor in. I tried this out, and she called back and she was like, "Do you guys have more of the clarity factor?" I was like, "Oh yeah, we have plenty. Would you like to order some?" "Oh yes, but I first have to tell you." So I do coding and stuff for Google over here in California. She lived in California in Silicon Valley. She's like, and I work with people a quarter of my age. And sometimes they ask me, how am I able to keep up so well? And she said, especially after I started taking this clarity factor, I love it because it lets me work circles around them. And they're like, how are you able to stay focused on these 4 or 5 different things at one time? And so it's kind of funny when you talk and you think about how we talked about this before. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's not necessarily true. This woman was, I believe she was around 76 years old, and she was one of the top coders over there at Google. And it's that type of keeping your brain active is a great way to keep your brain health up. And when you have something that can increase blood flow and nutrient delivery, it can really help take it to the next level. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, I just thought that was a nice story to share because I remember thinking to myself, goodness, I probably should take this clarity factor more.
Yeah. Well, they say, if you want to make a change, you can use your brain for a change.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go, my friend. Well, let's see. We're right around 45 minutes, Bob. I didn't know if you wanted to go into too much more.
Just one more thing about you had mentioned about blood flow and nootropics. So
let's do that.
Circulation, obviously, really important. Human beings and other beings as well are large. We're very large beings, and we're dependent on a circulatory system in order to circulate blood that can provide nutrients to cells that are far away from your heart, your fingertips, your toes, your brain,
microcapillaries. Yes.
And so for the survival of beings our size, we have to have a circulatory system, and it needs to work well. So your heart is pumping, but it's only pumping blood to about the first 25% of your circulatory system.
Right.
The rest of it is too small. Right. And those capillaries have to open and close, and they're dependent on certain nutrients for that to happen. The health of your endothelium, all of those cells that are the inside lining of your veins and arteries, have to be healthy so that they can force this contraction and expansion. So overall, nutritional health, very important in that regard. But then also particularly phosphatidylcholine
Yes.
is making up part of your cell walls, and it does many things, but it provides elasticity, which then allows for your arteries to open and close easily.
And that's really important. Like, we talk about as you get older with everything, you stop making as much of everything, and things start to accumulate. The things that you've been eating for years, and plaques start to accumulate and things like that on the circulatory system.
And also phosphatidylcholine is related also to fatty liver, which is a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which kills a lot of people. Phosphatidylcholine is the compound that helps to extract the fat from the liver to be burned as fuel.
There you go.
And so that's in our Boomer Boost product, as well as the other nutrient, arginine.
Arginine's in here too.
Is in there, and arginine is a precursor to nitric oxide, which is helping to stimulate
there it is, right
the expansion of your capillaries.
Right? Yep. Phosphatidylcholine, arginine, glutamine. Glutamine's good. Glutathione.
Yeah. And there's lots of antioxidants in Boomer Boost as well, which reduces inflammation in your brain, which is a precursor to certain dementias, correct? CTE, Alzheimer's disease.
A lot of them. Almost, I won't say everyone, but almost every single one, inflammation is there in high droves. Actually, someone I know just got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and they said his inflammation level is off the charts. I haven't gotten a chance to call this person and talk to them, but I'm going to. And I'm going to send them some Gladiator barley. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, you can, the antioxidants for that, the Gladiator barley will be tremendous because the SOD.
Right.
And also the Boomer Boost has trimethylglycine, which is combats high homocysteine levels, which can affect your heart. People with rheumatoid arthritis are more susceptible to heart disease.
They just put them on all this new medication, so I didn't know. I was thinking the barley because it's 100% natural, and that'd probably be a little bit better than just starting out on this new medicine. But I was definitely suggest the Boost. But the person I know has been in and out of the hospital for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, so
take it slow is what we have to do.
We had an employee here who had rheumatoid arthritis, was on medication for it. And one of the things that helped her the most was turmeric.
That's right. Yes. You know what? I'm glad you told me that. I actually was talking to somebody who works in the back, and they're saying, "Oh man,
turmeric."
And I told him that, and he said, "You know what? That really helped."
Curcumin.
Yep, curcumin. Yep, absolutely.
Very powerful. Very good for brain health. New research going on right now, Raleigh, with certain turmeric companies that are showing that turmeric can be a very good base for a nootropic.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Brain health, nootropics, brain-based therapies for menopause, hot flashes. It's crazy what you can do with the brain.
Yeah. The other last
thing healthy,
is the other last thing is capillaries respond to pulses of electromagnetism that's coming from the core of the earth and also from the sun. And you can use a particular type of circulation mat that mimics those pulses from the core of the earth, where you put the mat underneath your mattress pad and you plug it into the power supply, which is generating these pulses, and you can lie on it 8 minutes in the morning, 8 minutes at night, and it increases your circulation by about 29% over what you would have otherwise.
Yeah.
So especially as you get older, you want to know about this type of technology.
I actually know a large group of people who have these and use them, and they are not the youngest, but they act like it. Like truly, they act like they're 20, 30 years younger than they really are. And we actually have some shows about this.
Podcasts,
on our website. So check out boomerboost.com. Look up PEMF. You can also just search, there's stem cells need nutrition is one of them where we talk about it. and any of the shows with Ann Harrison. So just look up Ann, ANN Harrison. She is our resident stem cell and PEMF mat expert. Yep. And you can actually talk to her if you want to know a little bit more about it. You can call 1-800-861-4609. She's sometimes get inundated. So if she's not available, we could leave a message and get you in touch with her. But it's really quite intriguing. That's the type of technology. I wanted to bring this up, and it's actually good. I'm kind of glad I waited till now. But this is space age technology. So the neurofuel is actually used by people who work at SpaceX.
Yeah.
That make the rockets that land straight up. Yeah. Like you could even imagine how to do that. Well, they do it. Yeah. And they actually use the neurofuel. The engineers there do. And then the PEMF technology is actually something that NASA uses for astronauts who return home after being out away from the pulses for so long. You know how your muscles, I don't know if you've heard, but when you go out so far away from Earth and gravity and you're not using your muscles, I mean, you're using your muscles, but there's no resistance. They tend to atrophy. You don't, it's the old saying, you don't use it, you lose it. Yeah. And this is exactly what it is. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so when a lot of when the astronauts come back, they actually expose them to these pulses on these types of mats that we're talking about to help get their body circulation back in the gear, help with the muscle recovery. Because without that circulation, you can't get oxygen to your cells, to your body. Yeah. You can't get nutrition to your body. You're not going to be able to repair. So it helps a lot with recovery.
There's a whole podcast just on circulation.
Absolutely.
In our system as well.
Yes, so, please check it out. Boomerboost.com, YouTube, all of our original podcasts, Live Forever Young Radio, and these new ones you're going to be able to find on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, all the ones that you can stream on. I said iHeart Spotify Radio. I made up my own.
That's good. Hey, they created a merger.
Yeah, merge them. We make them one. It's easier to find stuff that way.
So there's going to be a merger.
Anyway, but yeah, I think that's about it. But we're about 53 minutes or so. So I think sounds like a good time to end it. We talked about a lot of good stuff. We will be here Thursday with a new show. Yeah. We'll figure out another good topic. If you guys want to hear about anything specific, please send us an email or leave a comment on any of the videos and we'll pick that up, and we're always open for suggestions. But again, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 11 a.m. It's Live Forever Young Radio Live. I'm Raleigh. This is Bob.
Thanks everybody for watching, and if you're listening to Live Forever Young Radio, see you on Thursday.